executive director of the Heights Movement. Said we've been battling this thing here. You know, just kind of got the excuse me. Been battling this thing here obviously now for a good 5-6 years now. But Carlton knows the details and knows the numbers, so I'll let that segue into him on kind of how the battle's been going. But I'm just extremely proud of the residents and their engagement and how they really stepped up and took this fight to the city of Cincinnati.
Carlton Collins. I've been one of the leaders of the Heights Movement for a while now. It's been 5+ years since we started to have this conversation about the gun range, raising it to our elected officials, and it's been an incredible journey of one, perseverance, but finding a way to get the city, the county, the state, and the federal government to all work together, get them rowing in the same direction towards finding a resolution, right? So for added context, there are 6 government-funded agencies that use the range: Cincinnati Police, Evendale Police, U.S. Marshals, FBI, DEA, and the ATF. There's 38,000 gun training hours. They shoot 300 days a year, 6 days a week, 7+ hours a day, and they've been there for 77 years this year. The village in Lincoln Heights is 78 years old. The land was donated to the city of Cincinnati in 1947, and they have been in the same location, firing guns ever since.
Symbolic wins are huge for a community like Lincoln Heights. When you can have a tangible win that the residents can point to and go to see progress is huge for a community like Lincoln Heights. Especially when a lot of promises have been made and fell through, and got long-term council members who also have tried to make progress on this, but just hasn't quite got across the finish line. So when they actually can see what that finish line looks like, granted, I wouldn't say they were officially crossed it, but the fact you can actually see it right now is huge progress for our community.
Yeah, it's absolutely light at the end of the tunnel. So again, $31.6 million was raised across the 4 levels of government, and we had our groundbreaking last Friday. So it was an incredibly celebratory moment. Just to think, like, there's so many senior citizens who've never experienced a week without hearing gunfire. Statistically, it's estimated to be somewhere between 50 to 60,000 gunshots heard every single year. And again, it's an open air gun range. So growing up, like, we heard every gunshot. And just to be able to celebrate that the next generation of young people won't have to be subjected to that is not only is it a blessing, but I'm just really grateful we've been able to sustain the fight that has started every single decade, and we were just the ones to help get it through the finish line. But there's always been people rallying, fighting, complaining, advocating for the removal of the gun range. I'm just blessed we came back at the right time. Left, got our education, came back, and then we're able to just not quit, right? And being able to just push through, we're excited for the future.
Well, just from studies that we've done, obviously, anything over 82 decibels, just causes long-term hearing loss. And obviously what we were experiencing was, sounds over 100 decibels on a consistent basis. So that's just one part of your environment where now what you're hearing is causing stress and trauma on your life. Not to mention the sounds that's coming away from, right? Those are now affecting your ACEs scores or something in a completely different manner. And I'll definitely let Carlton kind of hit on that a little bit more. But when you talk about that on top of the lead that's being pushed out into our soil, into our waterways, things of that nature, just the environmental injustice that's been taking place. And then once again, the fact that the community, the residents, the government has all stepped together to change that environmental injustice is a huge win for the residents of Lincoln Heights. And yeah, I mean, I'll let Carlton get more into, the mental side of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But just from an environmental side, when you talk about the sound, the quality of life that's produced, definitely a huge win for the village of Lincoln Heights.
Yeah, and so we began this conversation talking about adverse childhood experiences, which they're indicators to like how successful or what is the likelihood of success when you're a child. And because of the gun range, like as an aggravating factor, the ACEs scores for many of the people who live in Lincoln Heights are much, much higher. And even as we talk about, what are the implications, to be honest, we don't know all of them, right? We haven't had the ability to do all of the studies yet. There still needs to be a community needs assessment that factors in the gun range. There needs to be a community health assessment that factors in the gun range as an aggravating circumstance, right? And then being able to take that data and analyze it compared to other communities, which frankly every other community in America that gets an opportunity to exist, live without the sound of constant gunfire. We still have to do that comparative analysis of how has this impacted us from a long-term perspective. And I think a big part of that too is figuring out what have been the mental health implications, right? How many people have struggled with mental health? Is our suicide rate higher than other people in surrounding communities per capita? And I also want to say this, they're not done shooting. Right, so they're still, though we've had the groundbreaking, they're still going to be in the same location at least for the next year. So October of 2025 is when they're slated to move, and it be officially closed down. But just because this is closing does not mean that the community has received any type of healing. So that's our next battle. That's our next fight for sure.
I mean, yeah, I could definitely start off from making sure that the residents are at the table from a policy standpoint. There's a bill, obviously, that's coming through the State House right now that can create a JED, which is a joint economic district within our community. What I would hate for to happen, which I do not foresee happening, is that the residents do not have input how that economic district can impact them in the best situation. So just continue advocating for our residents, making sure that they're at the table during these conversations is a huge piece I think the high school will play a part in.
I'm under the personal belief based off of research that the 33 acres that gun range sits on can and should come back to the village of Lincoln Heights. But talking about economic justice is huge. Because restaurants don't want to move into a community where there's gunfire, businesses, people, so, real estate agents don't want to come in. We have to ask questions about how the gunfire has affected home values and our appraisals. But also, of course, we need to talk about mental health, we need to talk about physical health, we need to get a full and comprehensive understanding of how our social determinants of health have been impacted negatively by the gun range. And I do think that in part comes from a community health assessment, community needs assessment. But ultimately, and because there were 4 federal agencies that used the range over decades, there needs to be some type of federal civil rights case where we're looking into it from a broad and expansive way as possible, and that's always going to require some type of federal oversight, because I don't think that we're going to, and at least historically, Lincoln Heights has not benefited just from the state of Ohio reviewing some of the systemic issues that the village has been challenged with. So having that federal support and looking into how civil rights have been violated for all of this time, I think is a huge piece of how we move forward. And like making sure that it's done in a way that's equitable, fair, and because they contributed to it, it shouldn't be a heavy lift.
So definitely, definitely. And that gets back to my last previous question. I think it starts with that particular area and talking about the economic development of that area. Obviously, once again, I'll let Carlton get more into the details and the values of it. But to say that the village of Lincoln Heights should not receive resources as a part of this healing, is blasphemy. So once again, but I think that's going to be a fight that the residents are going to, work for. I don't think that's going to be something somebody's going to give you. It's definitely owed, for sure, definitely deserved, but it's going to be a fight, and I think that's something that the Heights movement would definitely be supporting our residents for in that fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I just based off research, based off of looking, asking questions, I do think, it is 3 phases. Starts with, an assessment of understanding the damage that was caused. Then there's a community benefits component that the village would lead, and that is, and frankly, I think there's 3 separate community benefits agreements. I think there's one that's done with Evendale for like what's going to happen in the future, and like where there some type of benefits that come back to the village of Lincoln Heights, because this gun range was a taxpayer of Evendale, and at any point in time, by passing a sound ordinance, they could have changed it. And their police department used this range. So I do think it's Evendale. I do think there's a community benefits agreement, obviously, with the city of Cincinnati, because it was their range and they profited from it. Because the other federal agencies paid the city of Cincinnati to utilize that range. And also they are the landowner of those 33 acres. And I think even with the city of Cincinnati, personally, the couple things that are, I think, huge and would positively impact Lincoln Heights in an incredible way. First, looking at us being able to leverage the city of Cincinnati's insurance. I think that's an opportunity for us to return back to getting our fire, police, and EMS services. And then being able to leverage the bonding of the city of Cincinnati so that we can begin to do development. There was a new master plan that was created that, we still need to hear resident input about, but we also, there is a plan, there is a strategy that can lead to the restoration of the community. And the city of Cincinnati financially does have to participate in that. and I think in a number of different ways. And then I think there's a community benefits agreement that's related to the federal government, and some of that will come out from a federal civil rights case. But there's some things that the federal government can do, right, in terms of the distinctions, making it easier to invest. Frankly, I think every single resident of Lincoln Heights, past or present, should receive many of the same type of benefits that Native American reservations have, like in terms of being able to access different things, free college, like there's a lot of different things like that. So figuring out ways and getting as creative as possible around those community benefits agreements, I think is a huge step forward. And then lastly, if the residents so choose, they can engage in a class action lawsuit, because there can never be any question about the damage that we've experienced. We are very much so, we're not normal like everyone else, right? Right, we're much quicker to anger, right? We go 0 to 100 really quickly. And so I do think there's an opportunity to explore, what is, how much is pain and suffering worth?
Absolutely, thank the lady behind the camera right now, Celeste Treece, and she brought a lot of different organizations and structure to this fight. When you talk about from a county standpoint, definitely Ms. Denise Treehouse, and both of our county commissioners, as well to our president, Alicia Reese, and then, Commissioner Stephanie Dumas, the fact that they brought the most money to the table, and the resources to the table, is huge, and they all had to vote to approve that as well too, and they all had to work together to get that done. We could go in so many different directions. Professor Brian Earl was a huge impact for all of us. Professor Newman at UC as well was huge. When I tell you the teams that we built and the fact that so many individuals have come together, and I don't want to miss anybody, so I'm going to let Carlton also touch on some folks too, but Ashley Glass comes to mind as well too, from a mental health standpoint. Woodard.
Dr. Zaria Davis.
Man.
Dr. Tia Gaynor. It's been a lot that they've been helpful.
And I feel like we're missing out so many different folks. Jan Michelle Kearney, from a city standpoint, was so huge. But lastly, man, Senator Sherrod Brown. I shouldn't say lastly, just
most importantly.
Yeah, I mean, from a federal standpoint, Senator Sherrod Brown at his office, to bring that light onto this situation as well too is huge for the residents of Lincoln Heights. But lastly, man, the residents of Lincoln Heights, the fact that they stood up, brought their cameras out, came down to City Hall, came down and protested in front of the gun range. That's huge, and I think that momentum is carrying forward to be able to prepare them to the fight that's coming up, as we talked about before with healing. So thank you to all our partners. Thank you to all of our allies. I'm sorry if I did not mention you. I swear to God, I'm so sorry. But you know who you are, and you didn't do it for the shout-outs, and that's another reason why I definitely appreciate you too, because you all just did it for the work. That's why I love you guys for sure.
No, absolutely. And I want to thank PG, because he called the first hearing, PG Sittenfeld. I want to thank, have to thank Police Chief Thigi. You have to thank Sheriff Charmaine McGuffey, because they were diligent and they stayed at the table.
GCF.
Yeah. Greater Cincinnati Foundation.
The church.
Yeah.
We got to thank everybody. The churches
yes.
that helped us, Lincoln Heights, Mount Moriah, Ebenezer, Miss Chandra, Matthew Smith from United Way. She's been incredible.
This has really been a city effort, man. Which is so crazy.
Really
How often do you see something where everybody in the city come together? I can race, creed, and color. Everybody saw this as an issue. And if you work on the right side of history, you still got time.
Shout out to Dr. Robert Shapiro,
Yeah.
Forces for Children. He's been great. Aaron Saul, who was in that role, working with him. Man, the list just goes on and on and on. It's so many people. All the media, literally.
Absolutely. The media.
Channel 5, Channel 9, Channel 12, Channel 19.
Just for shining a light on our community and shining a light on the
Slate,
situation.
Washington Post. Shout out to Christina from Slate. She came to join us at the groundbreaking. Yeah, like we've had so many people, so many like just come out of nowhere and being willing to support. And you know, I will thank, you know, Mayor why am I forgetting his name? Brian Poole. Okay. Poole, my God. I've never called him by his first name in his life. Gotta thank Mayor Poole for sure. And we thank the administration that Daronce is a part of as well in terms of the village of Lincoln Heights. But there's just been no shortage of people who have supported us over the course of 5 years. Renee Mahaffey Harris, gotta give her a shout out. Center for Coastal Health Gap, they were big in amplifying the message. Also thanking the Archdiocese of Southern Ohio, the Episcopal Diocese. They were great. They helped us institute Peace Camp. We thank Princeton City Schools for their support over this time and over the years as well. And yeah, we were able to put together a coalition of hundreds of people, like over the course of 5 years, who helped support us, helped us elevate our voice, helped us on the policy side, helped us get access to resources that help residents, doing all the testing. It's just been an incredible journey. And to get to Friday, having that groundbreaking, having all of those people there, and we just want to thank them, you know, from the bottom of our hearts, right, for seeing our humanity in this process.